we've talked about the keel, the transom, the planking. The other important part of the boat is the stem, really. Now, that's just a plywood pattern for the stem of a little sailing dinghy. And usually, if you can, you try and get a piece of grown oak whose grain matches the curve of the stem pretty much, because that gives a strong, solid piece of timber. This is the sort. This is the sort of thing. We've got an oak bend that's thick enough to be a stem. We've got the grain. This was a big bent branch of a tree. The grain is running down here, around the corner, and hopefully something like this would be suitable for a stem for a sailing dinghy or rowing boat. But it's surprising how big a piece of oak you need to get out a small bent strip of oak for a stem. On the face of it, this piece looks like it might just do the job, because this stem is actually scarfed away here onto the keel, and we can get our oak bend and our pattern and manoeuvre it around and try and work out what's going on. There's a few big knots there and there that we've got to look out for. But the other thing not to forget when you're visiting a sawmills with your patterns is what actually is happening on the other side of your piece of wood. Although this side looks pretty reasonable, and we could probably get a good stem out of that. And also our deadwood. This is the pattern for our deadwood, which runs up inside the boat, joins the keel to the stem, and if we're lucky we might even get something like that out of it as well, with the grain curving round the shape we want. But this piece of timber is cut away quite considerably on this end, and if we actually study it a bit closer, we can see that the grain pattern, even though this is the sapwood, the bark's come off, it's very diagonal across the timber, and that really is going to make it quite weak, especially down around where we want the strength, around here and in the scarf. So this bit for this job is pretty useless, really. We haven't got enough timber here because it's cut away and this is sap. So just seeing this sap edge around here means that the branch was coming down around and then kinking off in another direction. So we've got the grain starting to slide off that way. So we haven't got the continuous strength of the grain running with the direction that we want it. That might be okay for an internal knee, something, a transom knee or whatever, that isn't liable to as many side stresses. But for a stem, I'd rather choose something different. And if you can't find a piece of oak, the options are pretty slim. The one way you can get over it is to actually make the stem up out of several pieces. So if this was our That was our keel there and our stem up here and our deadwood. That would be a normal sort of construction. Maybe an apron up there for our planks to land on. But the other way is to make it up out of lots of little pieces. So we have a straight stem, straight piece of timber down there. We have our keel running forward there. We have our scarf and maybe a piece of stem that does that. And then into that gets set another piece of timber, this time a smaller piece with a bend, with the grain running around the corner, so we can do something like that. And then out of that we can actually get the shape we want by just trimming the outside off. Have to rearrange our internal deadwoods. Again, you could have an apron up there, and this deadwood would come in. Again, a very slightly curved piece or a straight piece, and sit there. But it involves a lot more pieces of wood, a lot more fastenings, and more chance of failure, really. The other option is to laminate the piece you want. And this is a stem just being shaped. As you can see, it's exactly the curve we want. It's made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 pieces of mahogany, all bent around a jig and glued together with epoxy resin. And when that comes off, that is probably stronger than a solid piece of timber because there are very few faults in it. There's no cracks, no big knots, and it's stable. It will stay that shape virtually no matter what you throw at it. So for a smaller boat, up to sort of 20 foot, a laminated stem is a brilliant option because of the difficulty in getting hold of oak bends that are suitable for the job.